In this video, I'm going to talk about the brand new Lumix S1, S1R full frame mirrorless cameras and also the three lenses that's released with these two cameras. I also have the battery grip and also the optional Eyecup for the camera. So I'm going to go through all the highlight features of this system and tell you about what I like and don't like after I've been using it for a little while in real life shooting photos and videos. Kia ora, Richard Wong here from New Zealand. So after Photokina 2018, where Panasonic alongside with Leica and Sigma announced the L-mount alliance, the Lumix S1 S1R, which is Panasonic's first camera for the full frame L-mount system, is finally here. As you can see, I have borrowed the full set of system from Panasonic, which is I think this is the S1. I've taped all the things, so I can't really tell which one is which one. I think this is the S1, S1R, and all the three lenses that's released alongside with the camera as well, which is the Pro 50 f1.4 lens, the 7200 f4, not f2.8 lens, and also the 24-105 f4 which is the kit lens for the system. If you're wondering about the 2.8 zoom lenses, I was told that they will be coming very soon and probably this year. So the two cameras are pretty much identical if you look at it from the outside because they share the same magnesium alloy body. The major difference is that the S1, which is this one, has a 24 megapixel full frame sensor, while the S1R has the 47 megapixel full frame sensor. So the camera body is splash proof, dust proof, and also freeze proof, as you can probably expect it from a professional camera body. It's made of magnesium alloy. It feels super solid when you hold it in the hand. It just feels like it's built like a tank. If I put the body next to the Panasonic Lumix G9, this two camera looks very similar. The S1 S1R just looks like a slightly bigger version of the G9. The grip of the camera feels very comfortable. It's very deep. The shape is quite similar to the G9, but I think it's not quite exactly the same, but very similar. Hold it in the hand, even with a pretty heavy lens like the 51.4, it still feels very balanced and just feel very confident when you hold it in hand, exactly like what a professional camera should be. There are a number of customizable buttons and dials on the camera, front, top, at the back. But surprisingly, with the amount of buttons, it doesn't look too like overcrowding the body. To me, if you look at it, especially from the back, it still look pretty clean and simple. So you shouldn't have too much trouble. If you try to find the button you want, it should be still pretty easy. Some of the buttons on the body are illuminated. That means when you are using the camera outside in the dark, then you can see what are the buttons that you are about to press. I said some of the buttons because not all of the buttons are illuminated, so it'll be really good if Panasonic actually make all the buttons and switches illuminated. So the little joystick at the back of the camera is now a 8-directional one. That means you can not only tilt it left, right, up, down, you can only go sideways, up, down. So that makes it a lot quicker when you are using it to select the autofocus point on the camera when you're shooting. In addition to the typical customizable buttons and dial, there are a lot of other customization you can do on the S1 and S1R. For example, the top, you have the white balance, ISO, and exposure compensation buttons. So what you can do is that there are 3 different options you can go through. There's the while pressing, after pressing 1, after pressing 2, which each of those will give you a slightly different behavior. After pressing 1, that means you press it once, then you can change it, and then when you finish, you press it again, then you finish. After pressing 2 means you can press it, and then you can still do exactly what you do with the after pressing 1, but if you keep pressing the buttons, it will also toggle through all the different settings for that particular button, and then when you finish, then you just half click the shutter button to finish off. And of course, the while pressing, just like out of other camera, you have to press and hold the buttons and change the value. So This kind of customization is very good because different photographer, they may have a different kind of preference. Instead of forcing them to learn and adapt, especially people that switch over from another system, the camera can adapt to suit their shooting behavior, which is a very nice thing that Panasonic has done to this camera system. Another pretty nice customization I like when I was playing through the camera system is that for the image stabilization, you can choose whether the image stabilization is activated all the time or only when you half press the shutter button. This is something that actually I heard lots of people have been debating about, which is the better system. Should the image stabilization be turned on all the time or only when you hard press? There are pros and cons of both ways. So yeah, another good thing that Panasonic allow you to choose exactly what you prefer the most when you are using the S1 and S1R. I have complained about it in a few of my other reviews, and I will complain it again in this video. I don't know why, but camera manufacturer seems to really like put the exposure compensation button at the far right and on the top of the camera, which means when I try to change the exposure compensation, which is something I do a lot when I'm shooting in FJ priority or shutter priority mode, your finger actually will have to like move back quite a bit, which is not the most comfortable position to hold when you are changing exposure compensation. Consider how often I use this button instead of, for example, changing the white balance, which I normally just leave it in the auto white balance. So I think it would be really good if they swap the position of these two buttons, so they have the exposure compensation buttons at the far left and the right balance button on the far right. The video record button is located at the back of the camera next to the electronic viewfinder. Now I have this optional Eyecup, which is much bigger. It's actually blocking. You can't really see where the record button is. Now let me just rotate it a little bit. Yep, like this. Now hopefully you can see where it is. So I think this is a hint that this camera is really designed for photographer, not really for videographer. Otherwise they would put the video record button in a much more easy to reach position. The camera's menu system has also been redesigned. In some way, it's largely based on the camera system on the GH5 G9, but they make it like a multi-layer system. So after using it a while, I find it overall, it works quite alright, but there are definitely a few item menu settings that it took me a little while to find out the first time I tried to use them. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I have to use it for a little longer to really tell whether I prefer this new system or the old one they have on the G9 or the GH5 a little bit more. Overall, I'm quite impressed by what Panasonic has done in terms of the body design and also the build quality. This is definitely a very professional quality camera. Feels very solid, and it's actually it's a little bit hard to explain, but you know, changing all the settings, go through all the menu system is actually quite a lot of fun to actually use it, probably because everything is very responsive. Even if you go through the menu system, you click the buttons and change the settings, everything just changes pretty much instantly. And the feedback, I guess also the tactile feedback from all the buttons and switches just feel very nice. So yeah, overall it's definitely very fun and just a good experience to shoot using this camera. If you have a very big hand or if you shoot in portrait position quite a lot, then you can buy this optional battery grip that can be easily attached to the camera, which make the grip even bigger and more supportive. And also the most important thing is you can install another battery at the bottom of the grip, which you just slide in. There's no battery tray, which is something I really like, because you know, it's just another thing you could lose or drop when you are shooting, you know, for example, like during a wedding. I just put it open and then slide it in without having to worry about pulling a tray out and put a battery in. It has all the buttons and even the power switch on the grip and also at the back, and including the joystick. So yeah, if you shoot in portrait position a lot, I definitely recommend check out this battery grip. Feels exactly as solid as the camera body itself. The S1 and S1R share the same electronic viewfinder, and it is a very high resolution one at over 5.7 billion dots. The magnification is I think around 0.78, which is very large, and also the refresh rate can be up to 120 frames per second. So combining all three together, which make it the viewfinder is like super good. Just like the G9, the S1 and S1R also have this V mode button at top here. Not sure if you can see it. So what it does is that it would shrink the size of the electronic viewfinder a little bit, especially for people that wearing glasses. They may have trouble seeing the edges and corner of the electronic viewfinder because the eye have to be a little bit far back. So this feature allows you to just make it easier, shrink the electronic viewfinder a little bit so that it's easier for you to see the corner. So it's just another of those nice features that Panasonic has done, and I think none, or at least most of this competitor doesn't have this feature. When Panasonic announced the S1, S1R and show us the camera, I think one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about or discussing or debating a lot is the LCD screen at the back of the camera. And yes, the LCD screen at the back is a tiltable design and a three-way tiltable design, unlike the typical GH5, G9, which has a fully articulated screen. I know a lot of you guys are quite strong, prefer the fully articulated one, but instead we have this one, which can be tilted up, down, and also tilt up if you hold it in the portrait position. So the reason why Panasonic go for this design is because this camera, the S1, S1R, they are both designed for photographers. They are not really a camera that designed for videographers, and they believe this three-way tilting system is much easier for photographers to use when they are taking photos. So if you have taking photo in a landscape position, you can easily tilt up and down the screen if you put it high or low down, or if you have it like on a tripod in the portrait position, you can also easily do it like this, because otherwise if you have the fully articulated one, you have to flip it out and then turn it around and things like that. So this for photographers should be a lot easier to tilt up and down. But if you're a photographer, I'm quite curious and interested to see what's your opinion. Do you prefer the fully articulated one, or do you think this tiltable three-way one is actually the better design? Now, another thing about the touchscreen is that normally on all the Panasonic camera, or including this one as well, you have the Touchpad AF feature, which means when you are shooting using the electronic viewfinder, you can enable it, and then you can use the thumb to adjust the, when you're shooting like this, you can use the thumb to adjust the autofocus feature, which I find is super intuitive, very fast and very accurate compared to the joystick. But for some reason, when I'm shooting with the S1 and S1R, both of them, I find that my nose would actually be touching the LCD screen like a lot more than when I'm using a GH5 or G9 for some reason. I don't know exactly why, but because when that happens, then the Touchpad AF wouldn't be usable anymore, because you have something that's touching here, so you basically turn it into a multi-touch gesture instead of the single touch. And also when that happens, and if you have the Touchpad AF enabled, the joystick also cannot be used to adjust the autofocus point, because the camera is detecting you already have some input from the touchscreen. I talked to Panasonic about this, just tell them like I have this problem, I don't know why I didn't have this problem with the GH5 and G9, and they did some measurement and they said, okay, well, actually the distance that extrude the electronic viewfinder extrude from the LCD screen is pretty much the same between the GH5, G9 and S1, S1R. So maybe the reason is because the camera is a lot heavier, the lens is heavier, so maybe I just push a little bit harder to my eye and my nose for some reason, so that makes it touching it a bit more. I don't want to turn off the Touchpad AF completely, because I still prefer to use it, and if I'm be careful and don't just stick my nose on the LCD screen, I definitely prefer to use that than the joystick. So they just give me one of the workaround is that I can, what I can do is that I can assign the lock button. There's a lock button here to the touch screen. So that means when I turn on the lock, then touch screen will be disabled so that I can easily use the joystick to control the AF point even if my nose is just sticking onto the touch screen. And when I want to use the Touchpad AF, I can just quickly flick the lock button, switch back to off so that I can use the Touchpad AF. So while it's not the perfect solution, I think it's still a pretty good workaround, and it does show you some of the little feature design that, like the lock button, is actually very useful for some certain photographers. And another thing that a lot of you guys have been talking a lot, debating a lot over the last few months about the other brand's full frame mirrorless camera is the number of card slots. So fortunately for people who are interested in the S1, S1R, you have 2 card slots. Oops, yeah, there's a lock button here. And yeah, one is a SD card, one is a XQD card. So XQD card obviously allow you the fastest reading writing speed, while the SD card is good for people who are coming from the other camera, especially from GH5 or G9 who are using SD card. Personally, I definitely prefer if they are both XQD card because they are a lot faster and tougher, and I just prefer to have 2 card slots of the same type so they have the same writing speed, etc. But I can understand why Panasonic choose to do that, especially for people who will be upgrading from the G9 or GH5. This allows them to reuse the card instead of having to rebuy everything, which can be a bit expensive. The reason why it took me a little while to open the memory card door before is because there's actually a little switch here that you have to pull it down before you can open the memory door. And also when you are taking photos and the camera is writing data to the memory card, there is a little light here just to tell you that the camera is writing thing to the memory card. And when you try to open, if you try to open the memory card door when the camera is actually writing stuff to the card, if I take a few photos and I do that, you see the camera actually will beep, and also on the screen it will tell you that it's still writing X amount of photos. So please wait, don't pull the card out of the camera body yet. So it's another little thing, a very little design, but a very clever design that Panasonic did to the S1 and S1R. Just show you how much thought they actually put into the camera body when they are designing these 2 cameras. So let's talk about another thing that is very important, which is the image sensor and the image quality of these 2 cameras. So I talked about it briefly at the beginning of the review. The S1 and S1R, the biggest difference is that the S1, which is this one, has a 24 megapixel full frame image sensor, and the S1R has the 47 megapixel image sensor. Both full frame sensor does not have the anti-aliasing filter in front of it, so that will give you the maximum sharpness and detail when you are taking photo using either of these cameras. So the 24 megapixel S1 is obviously more suitable for the general purpose as a general purpose camera for people that shoot a lot of different things, from everyday photo to events, weddings, and need low light. The S1 would be the better camera, while the S1R would be most suitable for people who want a lot of resolution, 47 megapixel with no anti-aliasing filter. And the downside is the high ISO performance is not exactly as good as the S1. It's still good, don't get me wrong, both cameras still very capable high ISO performance, but if you go to really high ISO, the S1 does have probably 1 to maybe even 2 stop advantage compared to the S1R. Both cameras also have pretty large memory buffer. The S1 you can shoot 90 plus RAW file even when you are shooting at the highest continuous speed, and with the S1R, even with the 47 megapixel, you still have 40 plus RAW file if you are shooting at the highest possible burst speed. So that is very impressive. And also because of the XQD card slot, the photos got written to the memory card very quickly, so you can see the buffer got cleared very quickly after you took the photos. Oh, another thing I nearly forgot, the XQD card slot on the S1 S1R, they both will be upgraded to support the CF Express card slot later on with a firmware upgrade. If 47 megapixel is still not enough for you, the S1R, actually both camera has the high resolution mode, which basically take 8 photos consecutively in a very short period of time, and then it will merge it together to give you a much higher resolution raw output. For the S1, the high resolution output is 98 megapixel, which is almost 100 megapixel from a full frame camera. And for the S1R, the high resolution output is 187 megapixel. That is almost 200 megapixel from a full frame camera. That is definitely super impressive and way ahead any other competitor in the market. And if you have read or watched some of my previous review, I think that was the G9 review, I mentioned that the high resolution mode, while it's good, the actual usage sometimes can be a little bit limited, because if there is any kind of motion blur between the shots when you're taking the consecutive shots, even they are like within 1 or 2 second interval. But if you look at the output, a lot of time you see quite a lot of blur that is caused by motion blur between the shots that greatly limit how useful the high resolution mode is. For the S1 S1R, so Panasonic has created something called the mode 2. Yeah, they have the mode 1, and so they create something called mode 2. So the mode 1 is more like just the normal typical high resolution shot, just try to merge the 8 shots together. The mode 2 is more clever because it will try to detect if there is any motion between the shots, and if there's something like that in the area, and then it will try to do some clever algorithm to still give you sharp output at that area. So how does the mode 2 work in real life? I say it's not perfect because the photos I shot using the mode 2, I can still see a bit of motion blur, you know, in different area when there are things just moving slowly. But for things that is like very well defined object that moving, for example, there's a car that move across the frame when I'm taking photo, the camera managed to work out just not to overlap all those different images of the bus and just pick the one from one of the frame. And so for those kind of things that with very clearly defined shape, the camera does a good job in eliminating the blur that caused by merging those objects from different frames. So yes, definitely if you are shooting landscape or something that you don't want movement, use the mode 2. That seems to be give you much better and cleaner result than the mode 1. Panasonic continue to use the DFD autofocus system on the S1 and S1R. So this is a contrast-based only autofocus system. Unlike pretty much all its competitor, they use the hybrid contrast and face detection system, while Panasonic just use contrast based. AI or machine learning seems to be the hottest thing right now when it comes to improving the autofocus system, and Panasonic has been doing that for a while. The G9 already has some AI machine learning, deep learning thing built in, even though they haven't really strongly advertised it. But I remember when I was doing the G9 review, Panasonic told me about the AI they use for the autofocus system. And with the S1 and S1R, both camera has the deep learning when it comes to the autofocus system. If you switch to the face detection mode, you now not only have the eye face body detection, it also has the animal detection, so it can detect the different animal when you are shooting it automatically. You don't need to do any input. So I made a quick trip to the Auckland Zoo just to see how does the animal detection works in real life. And yeah, from my quick testing, it seems to be pretty impressive. I have been just trying it on many different kind of animal, and the camera managed to pick up most of the animal pretty much instantly when I point the camera to that particular animal, even when yeah, you know, sometimes they're doing something that I really shouldn't be taking photo of, but it still managed to do that. And if you don't want to confuse the camera because you are not taking any photo of the animal, you can also turn off the animal detection, so your face detection system is now just back to the normal eye, face and body detection. And when the camera detects multiple body or different eyes of your subject, you can also quickly toggle between, for example, the left and right eye by using the joystick at the back of the camera. Very easy, very quick to use. In real life, the face, eye, body detection seems to work very well. Even if your subject is moving around quickly in different distance, or if they turn around, the camera always manages to pick up the face, the body, and the eye when they're facing the camera pretty much instantly. When you are taking photo using the single autofocus, the S1, S1R, the performance is, I say, is very similar to the GH5 and G9, which is not a bad thing because the GH5 and the G9, the autofocus performance is very fast and very accurate. So the S1, S1R is quite similar. Now, there's something I found out that probably doesn't matter to most of you guys, is that when I was trying to do some screen capturing to show you the autofocus performance, especially the speed, I noticed that every time when I plug in an external HDMI recorder or screen to the camera, and then the autofocus performance, especially the speed, would drop significantly compared to just normal usage when I don't have anything plugged into the HDMI port. Yeah, I don't think this is something that will affect the normal user, real world usage, but thought this is something interesting I want to share with you guys. In terms of the low light autofocus performance, the official figures say the S1, S1R can do autofocus down to -6 EV using an f1.4 lens. So that is very impressive. So I use both camera to take quite a bit of low light photo using the 51.4 lens. I would say the low light autofocus performance is quite good. But having said that, I don't know whether it is really a lot better than, say, my Nikon Z6, which has a much lower low light autofocus performance figure. When shooting photo at the highest burst speed using continuous autofocus, the result is a little bit, sometimes I got very good result. I got like 10 out of 10 photo that is completely sharp and focused, but then sometimes I got like maybe only 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10. So the continuous autofocus performance when you are shooting photo is quite good and definitely very usable, but just don't expect the S1 or S1R will give you the best and most reliable performance when it comes to continuous autofocus when you are shooting photo in the high frame rate. While these two cameras are clearly not designed especially for videographer, I still did quite a bit of testing of the autofocus performance as usual. I did a lot of autofocus testing for the Panasonic cameras. Overall, I say I am quite happy with the performance of the continuous autofocus focus tracking when you are shooting video, especially when you are shooting video with people in it and you want to track the people. The camera managed to track the shape of the position of the subject you are shooting very accurately, pretty much 100% of the time. And it also can try to adjust it and to shoot and get it focused on the subject you are shooting. Not perfectly. The reason I say that is quite a bit of time when you are moving quite a bit, it takes a little bit of time, maybe 0.5 seconds or so, for the camera to snap back to the subject that you are shooting. But when it does that, the transition is also quite smooth, and it's not like a sudden very fast movement. It just do it quite nicely, beautifully, slowly, that transform to that. So because of that, it doesn't look too bad when the camera just snap back to your subject. Yeah, look at the footage I shot over the last few days. So you can see sometimes it does not follow the focus like immediately, but after half a second or so, it always managed to snap back to it, even though I was shooting at 50 with a 50mm lens at f2, which has and close distance as well. So it has a pretty narrow depth of field. But the camera still managed to just follow the focus, maybe slightly slowly, but accurately when I'm shooting video. So yeah, overall, I'm quite happy with it. Of course, I would like to see more improvement, especially when Panasonic release a video-oriented full-frame camera. I would like to see more improvement. So even for now, if I want to shoot some video using autofocus with either of this camera, I think I'll be pretty happy to use it, just aware of the limitation, and you try to work around it, and it is still definitely very, very usable. Both the S1 and S1R has an in-body image stabilizer built in. They're both the 5-axis type, and it also supports dual IS2, as you probably expected from a Panasonic camera. And the official figure is 6 stop effective with the dual IS2 and the 5.5 stop effective with just the body only. So I did a bit of testing to see how effective it is following my usual standard, and the result is around maybe up to 5 stop effective with the dual IS2 system, and slightly less, maybe 4.5 stop or so with body only stabilization. So while the figure is slightly lower than the official figure, but this is in line with my previous test result, my image stabilization result is always around 1 stop or so lower than the official figure, because I test the image stabilization in a completely different way how the official test method is. What is more impressive is the in-body image stabilization only still give me a very good result. So that means even if you put on a prime or from Panasonic itself or other manufacturer that doesn't have optical image stabilizer built in, you should still be able to get very good image stabilization result. So that is definitely very good. I also did a bit of testing when shooting video with the dual IS2 and in-body image stabilization as well. I will talk about it a little bit more and show you more footage in a separate video. But overall, I think it's quite good. It's still not like gimbal-like performance, but overall, it's very smooth and definitely make the usage a lot more usable when you compare to having no image stabilization at all. The only downside I noticed is that compared to say the GH5 or G9, the camera and with the lens is now a lot more heavier. So when holding and shooting video, my hand gets really tired very quickly. Maybe after a minute or so, my hand starts shaking a little bit, which does actually affect the smoothness or the shakiness of the output footage. Okay, now since we talk a bit about the video, let's talk about video a bit more. I said many times in this video, these two cameras are not really designed for videographer. I suspect they will release a video-oriented camera soon in the future, maybe S1H or something like that. I don't know. The Panasonic has not told me anything. But these are Panasonic cameras, so you can pretty much expect it. They will have good video recording feature and quality. So both cameras can record 4K video at up to 60 frames per second. Comparing the S1, S1R with the GH5, GH5S, you can definitely see a lot of the high-end feature that's available on the GH5, GH5S are missing on these two full-frame camera. It's because these two cameras are not really designed for high-end video shooting. But the advantage of the S1 and S1R over the GH5 and GH5S is that they both have a sensor that is 4 times bigger than the one on the GH5 and GH5S. So that gives you much better low light performance compared to the smaller micro four thirds cameras. And look at the results from the base ISO all the way up to the maximum ISO, which is 200,000 on the S1. The result is definitely very, very impressive. ISO up to 25,600 on the S1 is still very usable. Even 51,200 ISO on the S1 is still very usable, while the S1R, because of its high resolution output, and also it doesn't have the full sensor readout when you are shooting in the full frame mode, so the high ISO performance is not quite as good as the S1, but it's still very impressive. And I also did a bit of comparison between the S1 with my Nikon Z6 because surprisingly Nikon actually did a very good job when it comes to video when they released the Z6, and compare the ISO performance from the base ISO all the way up to the maximum ISO, which is identical between the two cameras. And you can see the at very high ISO, the Panasonic S1 definitely has some edge over the Z6. The image is a lot cleaner, less noise, more usable, probably for about one stop or so. So yeah, if you want a very good low light video camera, the S1 could be a very good choice for you. The cameras can also shoot high-speed slow motion video up to 180 frames per second at full HD resolution. The output footage when you're shooting the slow motion video is very nice, very sharp, lots of details. However, I'm a bit disappointed that the autofocus is still not possible when you are shooting the high-speed video at 180 frames per second. Not even when you start taking the video, once you switch in the high-speed video mode, all the autofocus feature is completely turned off. The Panasonic GH5 and G9 also has the same limitation. You cannot have autofocus when you are shooting high-speed slow motion video. So I can understand there are definitely a lot of limitation and difficulty if you want to enable autofocus when you are shooting the high-speed slow motion video. But then after seeing some of its competitors can now do autofocus when they are shooting high-speed slow motion video, I would definitely want Panasonic to do the same thing on their full-frame mirrorless camera as well. I'll be doing another video that talk a little bit more about the videos, so I'll be showing you some more sample footage, some more comparison footage, and talk about the feature a little bit more in a separate video. So if you are interested in the video performance of these two cameras, remember to subscribe, and then you can check out my video about the video feature of the S1 and S1R. In terms of the battery life, both camera has a brand new battery, which is take it out, which is pretty big. It's a BLJ31. The battery capacity is just over 3000 milliamp, and when I'm shooting it in real life, the battery lasts probably around just over half day of a quite heavy use. I have to say, when I go out review and I take a lot of photos and videos and do a lot of review, and it lasts probably a bit more than half day, but like 3/4 of day using one battery. So that is good, not super impressive, but also not like you have to really worry about the battery life as well. So if you want to shoot full day, 2 battery should be enough. Or if you get the battery grip, then 1 battery in the body, 1 battery in the grip, and that would be enough. Both cameras support USB charging, so there is a USB port here, and then you can plug in the USB cable, yes, a USB-C cable, and then you can charge the battery. And it's not just charge, you can also use it to power the camera. So if you have a really long day, then you can plug in an external USB power supply and make sure the battery can last very long time. And if you have the battery grip installed so that you have 1 battery in the grip and then 1 battery inside the body, and then you plug in the USB power source to charge the battery, the camera can charge both of the battery in the battery grip and the battery inside the camera body without you having to take any of them out. So it's very convenient. You can pretty much leave both of the battery inside the camera all the time. Another little thing that make it a lot easier for the user to use it in the real life. So after using both camera and the 3 lenses and battery grip, everything, and took a lot of photos and video in real life over the last week or so, I would say these 2 cameras definitely meet my expectation in a lot of area. The image quality, the build quality, the body design, everything just is exactly what I would expect from a professional camera from Panasonic. And in some area, it definitely exceeded my expectation. For example, the electronic viewfinder is absolutely gorgeous. You really have to use it and then you appreciate it. And the lenses, the sharpness, the image, the quality from the lenses, I haven't really talked about too much in this review yet, but it is very, very good, phenomenal, especially the 51.4 lens. The image quality from it, it's just definitely, it's just amazing. The sharpness from center to this corner is very, very good. The build quality of the lens is very good. The bokeh from the 51.4 is also beautiful. The background, the transition from the foreground to the background just looks very, very nice. And it also has some feature, like it has the mechanical aperture ring, and also the focus ring. You can actually pull it down and then you change to the manual focus mode. And just the build quality and everything about these three lenses are very, very good. I'm very impressed by the whole, like all the three lenses that's released with the camera. While I'm still working on the Pro 50mm f1.4 lens review, at this moment I'm even tempted to say that the Panasonic Pro 50mm f1.4 lens delivered the best image quality I have ever seen from any 50mm lens I have ever used in my life. And then the amount of customization, some of the things that I didn't expect that I would be able to customize, Panasonic make it happen. Just a lot of small design details that I wouldn't expect the manufacturer would pay attention to, but they did it, and the result is a very enjoyable camera to use. There are certainly things that I hope Panasonic can improve, for example, the autofocus performance when you are doing tracking. But having said that, it's not terrible. It's definitely usable, but I just hope the consistency and the speed can be improved a little bit. But think about it, there's nothing really fundamentally that I think need to be addressed. Most of the things that I have complained about, for example, the position of the button is the same for other camera from the other manufacturer as well. And so yeah, definitely I am very impressed by the first generation full frame mirrorless camera from Panasonic. I said first generation, but to be honest, these are not actually first generation camera from Panasonic. Panasonic pretty much take all the technology and experience they got over the last 10 years when they designed their micro four thread micro four thread mirrorless camera and apply them to the S1 and S1R, and you can definitely see it because a lot of things are really well polished, even if you compare to the, for example, Sony, which has been making full frame camera for a few generations. Put it side by side to a Sony, a lot of things that Panasonic did is definitely better, I would say. That may be a bit controversial, but that's my opinion. So after using the S1, S1R with the three lenses over the last week or so, I'm now even more excited about the future of this full frame camera system from Panasonic, and also the whole L-mount alliance in general. So I just can't wait to see what Panasonic is going to bring to us in the future. I know that they have a lot of things planned, different lenses and camera body that they don't want to tell me anything about. But yes, I am very excited about this whole system, and it's good to see a bit more competition in the market. So what do you think about the S1 and S1R? What are the things you like the most, and what are the things you want to see from Panasonic in the future? Leave a comment below, and I would be really interested to hear what are your opinion is, and also have a chat with you. Thank you very much for watching this video. Oh, and remember to subscribe because I will be releasing a few more video about the S1, S1R and the lenses in the next couple of weeks. Thank you very much for watching again, and I'll see you next time.